Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Nicholas Friedl. I am one of the artists on Police Simulator, and today I'm going to show you how to paint a car texture which we will then use for modding. This is however not a tutorial on how to integrate it and upload it to the Steam Workshop. For that we already provide a tutorial which you can read in the guide on. So let's start. This is the texture we will create. It's fairly simple, no fancy logos, etc. Only the basic workflow. First off, there is the base color texture. It just shows the color information of the vehicle and it's probably the most straightforward. Then there is the normal texture. This texture contains information about how the vehicle reacts to light in certain conditions, and we can use this to add some extra details onto the car by just modifying the normal texture. Then finally there's the RMA texture. This is the most complex texture, but it is very useful because we can use it to give some actually physical attributes to the car. The RMA texture actually consists out of three textures: a roughness texture, a metallic texture, and an ambient occlusion texture. Those textures are then bundled together in one by just adding each texture to a color channel. So what do these textures actually do? The metallic texture modifies how metallic a vehicle or a part of the vehicle is. Then there is the roughness texture. This is also a black and white texture, which shows how smooth or how rough a model is. The darker the texture is, the smoother it is. The whiter the texture, the rougher it is. And then finally there is the ambient occlusion texture, which we won't cover in this tutorial, but by default we can leave the channel white. However, I will come back to those textures later. Okay, so I will give you a small breakdown of this texture and how I created it in Photoshop. However, you can use every 2D application you want, Affinity, GIMP, or even Krita. So let me start at the beginning. In the beginning I just added in the Penta Z base texture because I'm modifying the Penta Z texture. After that I added in the UV layout texture, which is very useful if you want to visualize your parts and where the paint actually will be seen on. Alright. After that I added a gray background and wanted to start painting different parts. My goal was to add some color to the doors mainly, so I worked on one door first, and what I did was I used the UV layout, this wireframe texture, as a reference grid, so I could just see, for example, where I can paint so that it actually lines up. So I knew, okay, this edge lines up to here. I can actually paint here and it will look consistent over the mesh. Same here, this one connects to here, this one connects to here. And with those techniques I just painted the one door, and after that I duplicated it, split it up here and put it onto the other side. My next step was to paint the left part in the front here, same techniques, using the edge flow as a reference, and after that duplicating it on the other side. after that, adding some paint here and in the back to just create an interesting looking skin. After that, I continued to add police logos, because every police car needs a police logo. And since I was happy for this tutorial, I thought, yeah, let me just leave it like that. Okay, the left part here might not be quite exportable, but then I was happy with my base color. Since I wanted to visualize the texture before putting it into the game, I just opened Blender, which is a 3D application, completely for free, and I added this image texture and plugged it into the base color of this car texture, which helped me seeing the actual paint on the car and helps adjusting if you, for example, make a mistake in aligning it from one door or to the other. So, as a next step, I wanted to add some normal detail and modify the normal map. I wanted to add a bit of depth to the lettering, so what I did was I duplicated the Polizei lettering and added a black background texture, added a white fill, then exported it, and as a converter I used the free tool Normal Map Online, where I just put the texture in, adjusted it a bit, and downloaded it. So I put down the strength, then I got the result, and after that I added it over the existing base normal texture, which just adds some small layer on top here. By default it looked like this, but I used Photoshop selection tools to just select the parts which I didn't want, and after that just masking them out. After that, putting down the opacity and exporting it. To visualize it in Blender, I just took the normal map, plugged it into a normal map node first, then plugged that into this channel, and so now I could just see this small bump which wouldn't be visible otherwise. The third step was to create an RMA texture, and that was done quite simply. I just added in my base color texture and used masking again to select some parts which I wanted to have a certain roughness. So I always started by creating the roughness map, and to create the roughness map, which you can see in this red channel, I just selected the gray part, made it a bit darker because it should look very smooth, and after that I marked the other part and made it a bit lighter to make it a bit more rough. The metallic channel isn't completely black because I wanted to fake this effect of a metallic surface which this car is made of under this coating, and the ambient occlusion texture can stay white. Now in game we can just preview our awesome new car skin. That's it for this tutorial. I hope you could learn something out of it, and if there are any questions, ask them on Discord or post them in the comments.